The night she finally said the words out loud, the restaurant lights felt too bright, and the silence between heartbeats felt unbearable. She had dressed carefully, practiced smiling in the mirror, and still arrived carrying the quiet certainty that this would end like all the others. When she admitted to herself that no one wanted to date her, it wasn't self-pity so much as exhaustion, the kind that settles into the bones after years of hoping. What she didn't know, as rain streaked the windows and a waiter refilled glasses she barely touched, was that 3 small lives were about to collide with hers and gently, stubbornly, change everything she believed about love. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet miracles that happen when people show up for one another, take a moment right now to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this live because you do. She had grown used to being the extra chair, the dependable friend, the one who listened more than she was chosen. Her life was orderly and self-sufficient, built from early mornings, long commutes, and evenings that ended with books or television murmuring in the background. Friends told her she was strong, independent, impressive. The compliments felt like well-meant apologies. Dating apps had blurred into a carousel of half conversations and polite rejections, and blind dates felt like interviews where she never quite fit the role. She didn't resent love, she just assumed it had misplaced her address. The blind date was meant to be harmless, a nudge from a coworker who believed persistence was a virtue. The man across from her carried the calm weariness of someone who had learned how to juggle too many responsibilities with grace. He spoke of routines and early bedtimes, of a life that had rearranged itself after loss. She listened, as she always did, nodding and offering warmth without expecting it back. When the subject turned toward why she had been single so long, something in her loosened, and the truth surfaced not as a complaint, but as a confession she had made to herself countless nights. She had stopped trying to convince anyone otherwise. He didn't flinch. He didn't correct her. He simply absorbed it, the way people do when they've lived long enough to know pain doesn't ask permission. The evening ended kindly, without promises, without sparks that demanded fireworks. She walked home under a sky rinsed clean by rain, telling herself she was proud for having gone at all. She told herself that bravery could look like trying even when you expect the answer. Days later, an unexpected message arrived, brief and practical, asking if she would like to join him for a walk in the park on a Saturday morning. She almost declined. Morning light had a way of revealing the ordinary, and she was tired of being ordinary to people, but something steadied her hand as she replied yes, and she blamed it on curiosity. The park smelled of wet grass and distant coffee. Children's laughter cut through the air like birdsong, and she noticed him before he noticed her, standing near a bench with a backpack slung over one shoulder. Then she saw them. 3 little girls, identical in a way that made strangers smile and parents stare twice. They moved as a unit, orbiting him with easy confidence, each with her own small quirks that announced individuality within sameness. Their hair caught the sun, their sneakers scuffed with evidence of play, their faces open in the way only children's faces can be. He introduced her to them with care, explaining who she was in a way that suggested respect, not performance. She crouched to their level, the ground cool beneath her palms, and offered a smile that felt less practiced than usual. Children, she had learned, sensed truth the way animals sensed storms. They studied her with unabashed interest, then accepted her with a nod of collective agreement that felt ceremonial. It startled her, the simplicity of it. They walked. The girls argued gently over ducks and breadcrumbs, over whose turn it was to hold the backpack strap, over which tree looked most like a castle. She found herself laughing without guarding it, the sound surprising her as much as it delighted her. The man watched from the corner of his eye, not as an evaluator but as a witness to something unfolding beyond his control. She felt useful without trying, attentive without effort, included without earning it. Over the weeks that followed, their lives brushed against each other with increasing frequency. Coffee turned into picnics, picnics into afternoons at the library, where the girls sprawled across beanbags and demanded stories read twice. She learned the rhythms of their household by proximity, the way socks went missing and found again, the way homework was negotiated with patience and humor, the way grief lingered like a low tide that never fully receded but no longer drowned the shore. She learned that love could be practical and tender at the same time, Still, she kept a careful distance from hope. She had learned how quickly it could tip into embarrassment. There were moments when she caught her reflection in windows framed by the small chaos of family life and felt a pang of something dangerously close to belonging. She told herself it was temporary, a kindness borrowed, not a promise. The challenge arrived quietly, as challenges often do, wearing the mask of logistics. A work opportunity pulled her hours longer, tugging her away just as the girls grew accustomed to her presence. A school project needed volunteers, a recital needed extra hands, a winter flu swept through the house and turned routines upside down. She offered help when she could, stepped back when she must, and felt the ache of being almost essential. She worried she was practicing for a life that wasn't hers. One evening, after a long day that left her bones humming with fatigue, she found herself alone on a bench outside their building, listening to the muffled sounds of bedtime upstairs. The city breathed around her, a living thing indifferent to individual longing. She confronted the old belief head-on, the one that insisted she was easier to like than to love. She wondered if she had mistaken warmth for permanence, if she had read too much into small miracles. Change didn't announce itself with a grand gesture. It arrived through the girls, through their unfiltered certainty. They began to include her in their drawings without asking permission, to save seats without checking availability, to introduce her to teachers with pride that felt like a title. They brought her dandelions and secrets, homework questions and sticky hands. In their world, she belonged because she showed up. There was no audition beyond consistency. The man noticed too, not with jealousy but with gratitude that surprised her. He carried his responsibilities with devotion, but the load had been heavy and lonely. Her presence lightened it without diminishing his role. Trust grew not from declarations but from shared grocery lists and synchronized calendars. From evenings where silence felt companionable rather than empty. She realized she was no longer counting exits. The turning point came on an ordinary afternoon made extraordinary by honesty. A storm rolled in early, turning the sky the color of memory. Plans canceled. The girls sprawled on the living room floor, inventing a game that required pillows and improbable rules. She watched them, heart full and cautious all at once. She understood then that the question was no longer whether someone wanted to date her, but whether she was brave enough to accept the love being offered in pieces, assembled over time. She didn't need convincing, she needed permission from herself. She let go of the narrative that had kept her safe and small. She allowed the possibility that love could be quiet, could look like shared. Umbrellas and missed calls returned, could grow roots without spectacle. The fear didn't vanish, it simply lost its authority. Seasons turned. The girls grew taller, their voices changing pitch like a familiar song played in a new key. She was there for scraped knees and science fairs, for birthdays that required coordination and patience. She learned the language of their family, the shorthand of glances and half smiles that meant everything was handled. When she thought back to that night in the restaurant, she felt tenderness for the woman she had been, the one who had believed herself unchosen. Near the end of the year, as lights appeared in windows and the air sharpened with cold, they gathered for a small celebration that didn't need a name. The girls fell asleep in a heap, breathing synchronized, their trust a soft weight on the room. She stood at the window and watched snow begin to fall, the city transformed into something gentler. She understood then that love had not corrected her belief with words, it had disproved it with action. If this story is touching your heart right now, please take a second to like the video, share it with someone who might need a reminder that they are not invisible, and subscribe so you don't miss stories that heal in quiet ways. Your support keeps these moments alive. Just before the ending, here's a special request from the heart. Comment below with the word belonging if this story reminded you that love can find us in unexpected forms. She never did return to dating apps. She didn't need to. Her life filled itself with meaning that felt earned and effortless at once. When she looked in the mirror now, she saw someone chosen daily by small hands reaching out, by a partner who trusted her presence, by a home that had made room for her shoes by the door. The belief that no one wanted to date her faded into a story she used to tell, one that ended differently than she ever imagined. And in that ending, There was no grand declaration, only the steady, undeniable truth that love had arrived, stayed, and made a place for her to rest.